So my new hashtag is porn, not pizza kids.
Oh my God. Well, you've just announced to the entire world that is your new hashtag? What is it?
Oh my gosh. Sorry guys. Welcome to Cup of Joe with Anna and Sheila.
Welcome to Cup of Joe with Anna and Sheila.
Our producer Erin never tells us when we go live.
Actually, she did. You just weren't paying attention.
Sorry.
Anyway, so it is right on the screen.
You should be.
We said 20 seconds.
Okay. So welcome. I'm Sheila.
I'm Anna, and welcome to Cup of Joe with Anna and Sheila. Like, follow, share with Cup of Joe FL. Where's our sign? We used to have a sign, Erin. She's not paying attention to us right now, and that's dangerous.
FH, like fish hawk, at gmail.com. So if you have any questions, comments, you can either put them in the comment section or send us an email. We'll be happy to respond either way. We have a YouTube channel. Yay.
YouTube. Yep.
Still haven't figured out TikTok yet because, we're over 12.
That's right. And we have a Twitter, which I still...
borderline.
What do you mean borderline?
Well, we have a Twitter account, but Erin hasn't shared it to me yet, so I can't post stuff on Twitter.
I thought I did.
No, you didn't.
I'll share it too because I'm tired of being the only one doing that.
So we also are not professionals, so you can see our heads will swivel every now and then because a cat has run through the studio, or a dog will come and just sit in front of us.
Well, some people actually listen to us via podcast, so if there's an awkward pause in the conversation, that doesn't occur that much, but if the conversation pivots kind of unintentionally, or you're not following the narrative, there's because it's some kind of animal, or it could be some worker or someone that kind of crashes our show. Walks into the studio.
So we've got some interesting news.
Or a painter. Or someone putting up my disco ball in my bathroom.
Yes, Anna has a disco ball in her bathroom.
And I love it.
Just won't go there.
And we'll talk about it later, but I was telling Sheila is that on Pinterest, that website or that platform that makes people feel really inadequate as to their decorating styles or things they do for their children. I mean, if you really want to feel like
you're a
bad mom, just go to that website. Anyway, there was no disco bathrooms.
They're slackers.
So
no imagination.
Yeah, now they're going to be. So we'll do a Cup of Joe
from
the disco bathroom. Anyway, yeah. So what we were talking about is I'm trying to avoid the subject because it just makes me go ew.
It does. But the irony is so interesting that,
Is it really ironic? Because this happens so often. I don't think it's ironic. I think it's a personality issue with, maybe I can go as far to say, as white men in power just think that they are immune and the rules don't apply to them. Or that they have been able to get out, or people give them the benefit of the doubt. They've been able to rationalize the situation. And turn it to their advantage, which only occurs, in my opinion, with these particular types of individuals.
For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, the congressman from the Panhandle, which is that little strip at the top of the state of Florida, is being investigated by the FBI for child trafficking.
Is it trafficking,
sex
or is
trafficking.
it solicitation of a minor?
It's trafficking, and it's a federal offense, not a state offense.
Oh.
And it's a proud day for the GQP party.
What?
The Grand QAnon Party.
Oh, I see. Hey, have you been watching that show on HBO about Q?
No.
So there's a series. Yes, there's a series on HBO that talks about, I guess, 4chan, 8chan, and I'm not through everything yet. And it kind of outlines this particular filmmaker's observations as to who's behind Q. And there was actually a book about Q and something about Italy. So it's very interesting. And don't look it up on the internet, because it does sort of tell you what they think and who is behind Q, but not up to that point in the series. But it's very interesting. And it's very interesting from the psychological aspect as to who is bought into this, kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, sort of, and I use that word intentionally, from those in the GOP. So it's very interesting. So anyway, there is just this facet of society, both from a privileged perspective as well as sort of a super nerd perspective, that find the ways to sway everything that we're seeing right now.
It is interesting. But we digress yet again.
That's what we do best.
We do best.
And apparently Stephen says that we should be more active.
We should be more active?
I guess
Should
so,
we
but
do
I'm
something
retired. So you didn't see that I'm also retired today.
You are?
Yes. So we're not that active anymore.
You're retired?
I'm a retired hot girl.
Oh, dear Lord.
You didn't notice it.
No.
But maybe was I ever a hot girl? No, I wasn't. And I take pride in that. I was never a hot girl.
I always wore sneakers, so there's no way I could have been a hot girl. You put me in heels, I fall over and break an ankle.
Maybe I was hot until I opened my mouth.
There's that.
Anyway, so go back to the subject. Let's, we're go back to the chorus of what we're trying to talk about, which I'm trying to avoid because it just makes me ugh.
It's disturbing that I think the most disturbing piece for me was that he showed these pornographic videos that he had on his phone to other members of Congress on the House floor.
I'm not surprised by that. That's the whole locker room mentality. And apparently that's, if it's okay for the president, right.
But having worked in DC, the House floor and the Senate floor are the two most, I guess you could say, sacred places. That's where decisions are made. That's where laws are passed. It's supposed to have some kind of decorum, and it's just degenerated into this pit of yelling and screaming and hate and sex tapes, and it's just disgusting. And fortunately, that leads into our first guest, because I think it's disgusting because the maps were drawn so that all of the Republicans could hold all of the power.
Well, I think it's a good parlay into this because we are seeing these different facets of society that aren't the majority, that are somehow taking control of our culture, taking control of our laws, taking control of kind of the social
our persons.
Everything, yes. So we didn't mean to do it. I guess we didn't plan this.
We didn't plan this.
We're not professionals.
But one of the people is Jim Jordan. If everybody knows who Jim Jordan is, he's from Ohio, and his district looks like a giant horseshoe. And it was drawn because he wouldn't win in the district that he was in. So the state legislator drew him his own personal district. Well, he would win it.
In some of the court cases that have been brought up in the Supreme Court, I think they actually say we would not win. That's why this is important. They've actually stated that. Counsel has stated that. And that's apparently it's okay, but we're talking too much again, Sheila. So let's bring on our guest.
So we have a lovely woman joining us today. Her name is Abeni Davis. She's from Massachusetts. Yay. And she is working with the All Online. Yes, on the line. You want to bring Abeni in?
I don't know why she isn't.
I don't know why she isn't either. Erin's
there we go.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello there.
I give you such a graphic intro, but like a lot of the problems with how Congress is doing today is based on how these districts are gerrymandered so that one party wins and the other party can't.
Basically, the minority has taken control.
Right.
Sci-fi. We don't want to. Okay, so we'll let. So tell us before we go off on another digression here. Tell us about what is on the line. All on the line.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me here to talk to y'all today. I love it. I have my cup of joe here. It says hope if you can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but that's my theme of the day. So yeah, what is all on the line? We're a 501c4 campaign aimed to bring citizens across every issue together to win on redistricting here in 2021. So our mission is to raise awareness about the harmful impacts gerrymandering has on federal and state policymaking. We want to create and encourage participation in activities that defend democratic ideals. And we want to increase grassroots engagement in every step of the redistricting process. So we're a campaign that falls under the National Redistricting Action Fund, which is part of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, or otherwise known as NDRC. So we're chaired by former Attorney General Eric Holder. And so all on the line, we like him. So all on the line is part of the campaign under the National Redistricting Action Fund. And we have multiple buckets of our organization. I just say that just to say that we're a comprehensive organization. We have four main parts to our organization. We have a litigation component, we have a reform component, we have an infrastructure component, and that infrastructure component is really where All on the Line lives. We are trying to build that grassroots power now before the redistricting process really kicks off here in 2021. And then we also have an electoral component as well.
Well, we can tell you that in Florida, redistricting is going to be a main event down here.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Yes.
So what does the term gerrymandering mean?
Yeah. So gerrymandering is cheating. And I know that's blunt. But like, let's call it what it is, right? Gerrymandering is a form of cheating so that a political party or another group can gain power without actually winning a majority of the vote in their state. So politicians gerrymander, and you might have heard of the term partisan gerrymandering, and that's where Democrats have elected to gerrymander in the past, as well as Republicans.
Right.
So politicians will gerrymander during the redistricting process to establish a political advantage by manipulating electoral district boundaries. And it's a big problem. It's a huge problem, as y'all talked about a little bit earlier. It's a problem because what it means is that our elected officials aren't accountable to the public because they have co-opted the redistricting process to gerrymander or to essentially pick their voters. And for too many Americans, you hear people say that our political system just isn't working. And that's because politicians have used gerrymandering to manipulate the lines of their districts in a way that locks in their power, but it actually shuts out the people in the process. And so in too many places, politicians pick their voters instead of voters picking their representatives. And the only good news about this, y'all, is that right now we have an opportunity to make sure that this doesn't happen. And we have an opportunity to fulfill the promise of the government, a government that works for everyone and truly represents the will of the people. And I'll just say that it doesn't matter what issue you care about. Like, you can care about affordable health care or achieving equal pay or gun violence or voting rights. Gerrymandering is the fundamental structural barrier that prevents progress. And it's worse than ever. And it means that politicians are pandering to their party's extremes and to the special interests instead of seeking compromise or finding rational, reasonable solutions that the majority of people support. So simply put, it means that these politicians ignore the concerns of the people that they're supposed to be representing.
I don't think that's what was intended. Do you, Sheila?
No.
No.
And you can see that we have Representative Vern Buchanan as our congressperson. And if you look at the district, it's a square.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through Sarasota Longboat straight out. And then there's this little blip that includes Fishhawk, because Fishhawk, where we live, is a lot of Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
So he hooked us in so that we would be under his district.
So speaking of that, Sheila, how does gerrymandering impact us Floridians?
Yeah, so gerrymandering is a form of voter suppression. And again, let's call it what it is. Let's just be honest. It's cheating, but it's also a form of voter suppression. So it's intended to suppress our voices. By cherry picking voters, legislators get to decide whose voice matters and whose does not, or whose vote matters and whose does not. They get to eliminate or protect specific incumbents. What gerrymandering does is that it can discourage challengers because people can't win in a gerrymandered district because the representative is picking their voters there. It really messes with statewide representation. Statewide representation does not reflect the political makeup of the state. It dilutes minority representation. It literally splits communities, like you were saying, and it makes legislative compromise difficult or impossible. And just something that comes to my mind as an example in terms of legislation, is if we look at Amendment 4, right? That was something that passed in 2018. It received an overwhelming of the majority's vote by Floridians. So Floridians voted for this. They wanted Amendment 4 to pass. And what the amendment was it was going to restore the right to vote back to individuals who were previously incarcerated with felonies who served their sentence. So again, Floridians wanted this to happen, and they voted overwhelmingly for it. Now, we have a new piece of legislation that now requires ex-felons to pay all of their fines, their fees, and restitution associated with their sentence before they can regain their right to vote back. So like that's, again, let's call it what it is, a modern day poll tax. And that's not what Floridians voted for in 2018. That's not what people said that they wanted. And I bring that up just to point out that gerrymandering is playing a huge role here because we have elected representatives who are not actually reflecting our values, but they're getting away with it because their districts are so gerrymandered, and it's not a competitive district, and they know that another party is not going to be able to win there. And so that's how we can see on just that issue. There's multiple other pieces of legislations and things like that where you can see how gerrymandering is impacting us here in Florida.
Well, it also gives an advantage to rural areas. So you have a lot of rural areas that, coming from Virginia, the rural politicians had more power in the state house there than the people from Northern Virginia who had the most population, because it was gerrymandered that you had these giant rural districts so that you could get as many Republicans elected. Mm-hmm. And you had these little teeny tiny districts in Northern Virginia where you had, a couple of Democrats, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to digress here a little bit.
Oh no.
I know. But if you think about what the pandemic has done, and I hear this, that they're more rural or less populated districts do have more power, right? And we can argue about that's maybe what the founding fathers wanted, but let's not get, that's another digression. But with the pandemic, and the fact that people may be moving away from cities if we all are not tied to offices, right? That we're maybe on the cusp, and I'm going to be positive here for a minute, of a huge change, because people maybe have woken up to the fact that we're being ruled by the minority, number one, and they'll pay more attention to it. And hopefully when we get to this next question, you can tell us how we can get involved and how we can make some changes. But also the fact of, even if that doesn't work, if there are more people that are moving to rural areas and moving out of the cities because they're not tied to commutes, they're not tied to the offices, we may be on the cusp of a huge change here, Sheila.
One can only hope.
I like that. So, yeah, hope. See? Hope.
Hope. That's right.
Hope.
So how can we make sure that fairness and accountability, because if you're saying that it's cheaters, which I agree, then how can we be accountable? How can we hold our elected officials accountable? And how can we be accountable as Americans?
Yeah, so I mean, if we talk specifically about Florida, right? Like, how can we make sure that our maps here in Florida, like, are
exactly.
fair? Yeah, so in 2010, voters overwhelmingly approved what was called the Fair Districts Amendment. There's Fair District Amendment 5 and 6. And Amendment 5 was for state legislative districts, and Amendment 6 was for congressional districts. Because when we redistrict, the Florida legislator is responsible for producing maps for the state legislative districts as well as the congressional districts. And so these amendments, like I said, received overwhelming support. And they both have the same language. The only difference is that they apply to the congressional and then the state legislative. And what they both aim to do is they both aim to prohibit line drawing that intentionally favors or disfavors a political party or an incumbent, and protects racial and language minorities. So like I said, in 2010, voters wanted to see that. And so it's special here that we have these amendments in Florida. So we have to make sure that the folks who are involved in these map drawing process adhere to these amendments. In 2012, we ended up with gerrymandered maps. even though we had these amendments in place in 2010. So it's obvious that politicians just completely ignored the fair districts constitutional amendments that were passed by voters in 2010. So if we can ensure that, if we can have people pledge to following these fair districts amendments, then we'll be good. Like, we can get fair maps because that's what these amendments call for. And then another thing we want to see is just a transparent process. If we can try to work to ensure that we have a transparent process where we're able to see the communication that goes into this map drawing process, or the emails, or just if everything is very transparent, then we believe that we could get a fair maps here in Florida. And we want the public to be able to have as much input as possible. We believe that the public, the people who live in these districts are impacted by what these maps look like. And so why not be able to have a say in what the maps look like? And so if we can have transparency, public input, public engagement, as well as adhering to these fair districts, then we can get fair maps. And if anyone wants to get involved with us, like, we need as much hands on deck, right? You can volunteer with us. You can go to our website at ontheline.org/Florida and get involved. You can get plugged into the work there. You can be anywhere in the state. We'd love to have you on board.
So Erin has put your
Yes.
your website and the link here in the chat, as well as a banner. So if any of our viewers want to get involved or find out more about it, please check out the chat as well as the banner here that we have.
Yeah.
And it's going to be vitally important. So, I mean, we have a bill right now, HB1, which is the anti-rioting bill.
Yep.
And that never
Really?
would have happened if the maps were drawn fairly.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So stop the cheat. Stop the
Stop the
cheat.
cheat. Instead of stop the steal, stop the cheat.
Stop the cheat. Go to All Online.
Love
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
It was
you.
so
Thank you
nice
so
having you.
much.
We'll have you back again anytime.
I hope so. This was such a pleasure. I appreciate it. I hope y'all have a great weekend.
Thank
you too.
Happy Easter.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's right. It is a Good Friday today, isn't it?
It is a Good Friday.
Oh, happy Zombie Day.
Happy Zombie Day. And to end our lovely little talk, we have our favorite human, Scott Hottenstein. And
Do we have a favorite alien?
We do.
Okay.
We don't talk about that.
All right.
And the reason Scott's our favorite human is Erin, Anna, and I met because of Scott. We met at
Really?
a caravan.
No, we met, well, indirectly. I decided to do a one-woman protest on the side of the road one day.
That was so funny.
Yes.
And somebody
But
posted on.
it was on a group with that Scott started. So there you go. I'm circling it all back. Go ahead. Sorry. Continue.
And so we have our friend Scott, and Scott's got a lot of breaking news for us, don't you, Scott?
I don't know if it's breaking news. Y'all have turned corporate with all the, does Erin have like a breaking news banner and you just repeat something that was said like 2 days ago?
You can.
Make sure you hold your viewers at 9:55 in the morning.
No, we're not that corporate.
Ooh, that's a good idea, though. Ooh, we could do the introduction of my disco bathroom.
Oh yeah, we have breaking news. Erin has a disco bathroom.
Anna has an
Anna has a disco
but Erin,
bathroom.
we can make Erin one too. Anyway,
How are you, Scott?
Developing story. I'm doing okay. If you read my Facebook page, you know that a couple of days ago I turned in my resignation paperwork, which is actually kind of heartbreaking. Turned in my resignation as a civics teacher for Hillsborough County School District. Hard to work for an organization that right now is super toxic, and certain people within the organization have some integrity issues. So that's why I decided not to go back to teaching after the campaign. I'm looking for other ways to to remain an advocate for public education and all the causes that that I ran for when I was a state representative candidate.
Well, we're sad that you left teaching, but we know that there's tons of students out there who have benefited from your wisdom. And we have Obi the therapy dog who's making us feel better right now.
He can sense the tension and the disappointment.
Yes.
You know, it's funny. It's not funny. It's actually heartwarming. After I posted that, I literally posted it after I got back to the car. I walked the paperwork into district, and I got back to the car, posted it, and then my wife Laura and I went and got a sandwich at Bricado's. But the phone wouldn't stop ringing or buzzing with people checking in on me, text messages, phone calls, people offering job opportunities. And, but a lot of it just saying, hey, you know, how are you doing? And we're gonna miss you. Included in that, and to me, this is the heartbreaking part. A couple of my former students like either texted or emailed me, and they're like, "Hey, we heard from my mom what happened, and you know, we're gonna miss you, and you're always there for us, so we want to be there for you." And the heartbreaking thing is I'm not meeting any more students. I don't get to teach or coach more students who are just like the students I still do keep in touch with. So to me, that's the biggest loss, not being able to teach and coach some fabulous middle schoolers anymore.
Well, Obi is very upset, as you can see. He is so attentive right now. He wants to understand what happened and how he can help and what's going on. Next step for Mr. H.
So I'm trying to do some advocacy. One of the organizations that I've been focused on since my campaign, but even more now, is the one you just had on, All on the Line. I've become like a volunteer activist with them. They have a great program. You had the link up. I encourage everyone to join that, because the next decade in Florida, from a political standpoint, but also from a policy standpoint, is going to hinge on redistricting, which in Florida happens next year in 2022. So I've been doing some stuff with All on the Line. They have a training program that you could go through that teaches you all the intricacies, a lot more in detail from what you just talked to Abeni about. Also, I've been on the board for the Democratic Public Education Caucus of Florida for 2 years. And I've decided to pursue a bigger leadership role. There's an election coming up, so I'm going to run for president of that organization. And if I'm chosen as the president, then I'll have a statewide platform for the next 2 years to continue pushing for better public education policies. Because the ones we have now are crap, and it's just getting worse under the current legislature, the current governor, and the current commissioner of education.
Well, I happened to be talking to a school board member last night, and she had an interesting thought to develop a report card for public and voucher schools, the charter schools. And one of the things that was mentioned is that the charter schools don't have nurses, they don't have therapists, they don't have anything that the public school has. And when their report card is due to the state at the end of 3 years, they go under and rebrand themselves with a different name.
Yeah,
so
that happens all the time. Over in and it's the charter schools are a problem, and they're draining money from the public education caucus. I'm sorry, from the public education budget. But and there are some really bad for-profit charter schools out there, but it's those private school voucher schools that are the ones that are really unaccountable. Over in Polk County, former school board member Billy Townsend, he's got a great newsletter that I read. If you look at the statistics of how many students go to voucher schools or charter schools, most of them, like 3/4 of them, come back to the public education system within 2 years or 3 years. Parents, I totally get this from a parental standpoint. They don't understand how the public education system got to be so horrible. They don't know all the policies, they don't know all the politics, but they just feel that their children are getting monetized by the system. So they want something better. And they look at charter schools, and they look at voucher schools, they look at homeschooling, they look at the alternatives to their neighborhood public school. But in a vast majority of the cases, after a couple of years, they come back because they realize that other options aren't always a better fit, or they bounce from one school to another looking for the best fit. You can't blame parents for doing that, but what they don't understand is how we got there and how we need to fix it, which is by getting some better legislators up in the Florida Senate and the Florida House, and to be aware of their monetizing children tactics and just follow the money. A lot of the money in public education ends up in politicians, families, and friends' pockets. So that's what I hope to do for the next couple of years: raise the awareness of what the problem is, what's causing it, and then how to fix it.
Mm-hmm. So if people want to help you or get involved, how should they do so?
You could join the Public Education Caucus of Florida. You have to be a Democrat. We are a partisan organization. Mm-hmm. If you're not a Democrat, there are some excellent organizations out there doing the policy work. League of Women Voters has an education committee. Join your local parent teacher student association. I was part of their legislative conference last week and did some meetings with legislators explaining what's going on. But just take an active part, ask questions, follow what the school board is doing, follow what the legislature is doing. But if you want to join me in the Democratic Public Education Caucus of Florida, just type that into Facebook. It'll come up with instructions on how to join. There's a button right on the front page of our Facebook site.
Yeah, Aaron's pulling that up so we can have it in the chat.
Well, and the other thing, Scott, is I think the people have been so motivated about bright futures that it's finally woke up the beast, which are parents. And I think that if you guys can carry that motivation to 2022, I think that would be fabulous.
Yeah, that would be excellent. It's also a little frustrating because to me, like, okay, yeah. A lot of times people don't want to pay into the system unless they're going to get more out of the system than what they pay into it. And I find it funny that a lot of people who are all up in arms about bright futures, and they should be, but you know, it took being personally affected by an issue to have the blinders come off and see the corruption that has been brought to the public education system by decades of Republican rule. And they're like saying, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this." And a lot of people are saying, "We've been saying it for years, and you just poo-hooed us as socialist Democrats." But now that your money or your kids' money is at stake, now you're up in arms. So yeah, I think more people are realizing that grifters are going to grift, and the biggest grifters are the Republicans in the Florida legislature, and hopefully that carries through to 2022. I think what you might see, and I don't know if this is pre-planned out or if it's just going to happen this way, but I have no doubt that that bill gets passed, and then Governor DeSantis will look like a hero by vetoing it. And everyone will be like, "Oh, DeSantis is so great," when in fact that DeSantis is horrible for public education. So there's a difference between, kind of knowing about the issues and really knowing about the issues. I'm hoping to educate on the truth behind the issues over the next 2 years.
Well, we appreciate that. And
We
if folks want to understand more about what's really going behind the scenes, please reach out to Scott. We have the links here on the chat.
Yep.
And we welcome you to come back as you learn more.
Yeah.
And if you have things that people can get involved with, I think you're right. It's awakened a lot of people with the bright futures. So hopefully that will help people get a little bit more involved and understand that they do have a voice, and we do have to stop the cheat.
We do have to stop the cheat.
Yeah, and you could you could say that about almost any bill going through the Florida legislature right now.
Sure.
After this, I do a legislative update meeting. I've been tracking all the legislation during this year's session and reporting back and sharing that with Democrats throughout the county. And it's all about the cheat. Or here's a hashtag I've started using: Florida Republicans don't give a damn. And that's true, whether you're looking at the protest bill or education funding or bright futures, or if you start looking at the budget, the budget details came out this week. They're cutting Medicaid for 19 and 20-year-olds. They're cutting funding to nursing homes. They're cutting funding to affordable housing. And every time you hear a Republican say, "Well, it's the pandemic, it's a tight year," here's the fact. Last year, the approved budget in Florida was $92.3 billion. Every single proposed budget by the House, by the Senate, by the governor was more than $95 million this year. So they're already planning on spending billions more money. And that doesn't include all the federal money coming their way from the COVID stimulus package. So the governor now has over $100 billion combined in his proposed budget and federal plan. Yet they're saying there's not enough money to raise unemployment benefits or to extend them. It's horrible. Florida Republicans don't give a damn.
Well, and my favorite though is that he wants to give all of the admin and the teachers, full-time teachers only, $1,000 bonus. And I thought, that's just a slap in the face. Those teachers work their tails off. You guys were forced to go back to brick and mortar, and $1,000 is like, for him, nothing. It's budget dust.
Well, it's not for support staff either.
No, it's not for support staff. It's just for the principals, vice principals, and full-time teachers.
Yeah, so my wife is the school counselor. She's actually at home working, well, she's not working today. She's got today off, but she's been at home working all week because she was exposed to COVID for the second time. And that's not worth $1,000. And I'll tell you what $1,000 bonus is this year. It's $1,000 pay cut next year.
Sure.
One of the things, I had a conversation with Representative Beltran when before the election. There was no forum or anything like that, but we were at an early voting site, and I walked over and we had a nice chat. And he actually said to me, Scott, why'd you run against me? We got you the $500 million for teachers. And I told him, well, out of that $500 million that you gave to the school districts for teacher pay, you took $232 million back from school districts to continue funding the Florida retirement system. And another 264 million, I think, came out of what was the best and brightest bonus. And that was it was a horrible bonus plan that gave you thousands of dollars in bonuses if you had good SAT scores from high school. Now, I happen to qualify for that. So for a while, I was getting a bonus. But the same year that I was the Teacher of the Year finalist for Hillsborough County, I took like a $8,000 pay cut because they took the bonus money from me to fund the teacher pay for new teachers. So the year I was Teacher of the Year, my pay got cut to a little bit more than what a starting teacher would make. And when I explained this to him, he was like, I didn't know that.
Of course he does.
But he just wants to make sure that our lights are still on.
You know, the bills he sponsored,
They're horrible.
the bills he sponsored so far this session, you can sign up for his email and he'll give you his legislative update. He's done a bill about high school sports. He co-sponsored the bill that allows guns in churches, which after the events from in our community from 15, 16 months ago, how you could sign off on having more guns anywhere, I don't know, but he co-sponsored that. He has a bill to eliminate the Constitutional Revision Commission. It would be changing. It's not a bill; it's a resolution to go on the ballot to end the Constitutional Revision Commission, which he said it was all screwed up last time. And I'm like, yeah, I know. If you go look, it was all screwed up because the Republicans were the ones in control of it.
Well, Scott, we want to have you back. We're excited that you're embarking on this great new chapter, and we're really happy for you.
So keep us posted.
It's a little bittersweet, but I'm looking forward to still serving my community the best way I can for the next 2 years without having to run for office again.
Well, Scott, have a great Easter. Hugs and kisses to your wife from us, okay?
Absolutely. Happy Easter. Thank you for having me.
Thanks,
it's
Scott.
always fun.
Thanks.
Right. Bye-bye, Scott.
Bye. Well, yay. So he's still doing good work. He's still fighting the fight.
Yep.
And if people want to find out the truth, talk to Mr. H.
Yes.
Dr. H in some respects, but we'll just call him Mr. H.
Mr. H, yes. And I finally, after a year, learned how to pronounce his last name.
Well, pronounce it.
Hottenstein.
How are you?
Yeah.
I just didn't.
Oh. Okay.
It was too
Well,
long.
Obi was very concerned, as you can see, about Mr. H and what he was
very
doing.
concerned, yes.
Yeah. So
So-
he is kind of a therapy. He does respond to emotions like that. So apparently I was sad to hear that. And so
Yes.
Obi was trying to comfort me, as well as our viewers, but not to fear.
He's passed out in the sun.
Well, not
Scott.
Not-
Obi.
all right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. We had a great show today,
And
I
we
think,
have a surprise
Sheila.
guest next week. I'm not surprised, but it's a great guest.
Do I know about this guest? I probably do. It's
Midas touch. The three
very
gentlemen
exciting.
from Midas Touch will be on with us next week.
Exciting.
Yay.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. Enjoy Zombie Day.
Yes.
Go. Spring has sprung. I planted my wildflowers. Hopefully they go wild and crazy
Well,
and
it's freezing
free.
right now, so I seriously doubt it.
Yeah. Well, no, they're over there. We'll have a picture of them later. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining. Have a great
Bye,
weekend.
guys.
Bye bye.
To Ruth.
Oh, to Ruth.